Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, Secret Friends. Welcome back to Code 47, the Star Trek podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am your host, your humble servant, Trek Lord of West Michigan, Charlie Carden, joined by my number one in the Trek world any damn where, Peter Stein. Peter, how you doing?
Doing all right.
Excellent. Well, we've got a great show for you today. No guest, obviously, this week. No news this week, because we've kind of given all the bad news there is to print. There's no Star Trek being made right now. We think there's going to be a movie. So Peter and I are we're just keeping on trucking. We're continuing to talk about Star Trek episodes and movies because that's what we do. That's what we care about. So we have a random episode to talk about this week. This one's taking us all the way back to TOS, which I just did a TOS watch through, or more to the point that Peter, I talked to you when I was doing it, I listened through because I have a TV in my office to the right of my, so when I'm working, I could be like, oh, I'm listening to this episode. So I did the whole series within the last like 3 or 4 months. So it was cool to sit down and actually pay attention to this one and take some notes. And then we're keeping going with our top 5, bottom 5 of series. We're moving on to Star Trek Voyager. So should be a fun show with some fun surprises, hopefully, in our takes. But always, I'd like to talk about the wonderful people over on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. You get access to exclusive shows just dropped this past weekend, and actually just for Patreons just yesterday. Brand new episode of A Bad Trip to the Movies with the Cardens, which is a bad movies podcast that my wife and I do, which is becoming monthly. And our show, The Facts of Geek Life, which is winding down. Peter and I are talking about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, and we're almost to the end, but you'll be seeing that one in a couple of weeks. And again, those are Patreon exclusives. All of our shows come out early on Patreon, and there's a channel just on our Discord just for Patrons as well. So this is the way it breaks down. Your first week with the Patreon is free. After that, you can stay on board for free if you like. But during that first free week, you do get access to all of our content. You can also stay on board in your first month for just 50% off. And then stay with us for as little as $2 a month. We would love to have you. And there are hundreds of hours of great content that you can find on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon. So that's patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. I may even mention it later on in the show, but it's very easy to find. So we'd love to have you on board. As I'd mentioned, no appreciable news, except, Peter, you did see that there was more bad news. I hate to pile it on, but you'd mentioned something video game related.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with the video game Star Trek Resurgence, which was a Telltale style game, which set in the post-Nemesis Next Generation era, has been delisted from basically every platform, so you can no longer purchase it. If you already purchased it and it's in your library, you can still use it. So there is that, but you are unable to purchase it legitimately anymore, unfortunately.
Legitimately, that's dumb. And more case in point for physical media, right? Or even do you have it digitally? Is that how you have it?
I have it digitally. Yeah,
right. So they can't games, they can't take it from you.
Yeah, if you're buying it on PC, like discs aren't really a thing anymore.
I know. So. Yet GameStop is going to buy eBay for $55 billion.
Well,
That was that. I don't know. I'm not getting a feeling that that's a legit story because I haven't heard anything more about it. But
the discs for consoles are still a thing.
Yeah.
For most of them anyway.
Right. So. But as far as playing it on a laptop.
Playing on PC and stuff.
I don't know that I've had a laptop that's had a disk drive in a number of years. I just don't think it's a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, not cool because, again, we don't have any Star Trek. We do know, obviously, and we talked about this, that Star Trek Strange New World Season 4 is going to be with us in July. And we'll be back, obviously, to cover it 2 episodes per one of our episodes with a usual list of our collaborators, because we like to have a third voice when we're talking about new content. So get ready for that. But in the meantime, we're moving forward with doing our random episodes, or random SODE, if you prefer. I've talked about in the past that and we've had a lot of lists, and we change them around a little bit from time to time, but working with our Patreons and our regular kind of collaborators, we generally have somebody choose a series, or I toss them a series because I'd like to vary this out a little bit. And then we roll the multi-sided virtual die to help them choose a season of that show and then an episode. And this one was actually chosen by me. For the first time in a long time. So I landed with Star Trek, the original series. Season 2, episode 26 is Assignment Earth, which is funny on my Fandango at home, which is how I watched it. Apparently Fandango at home doesn't like the colon. So the episode was just called Earth, and it made Assignment : disappear. So I don't really know why. I'm sure it's not that way on Paramount Plus, but I thought it was kind of bizarre. No, but anyway, here is the summary. The Enterprise travels back in time to 1968, in an episode that came out in 1968. So good work. So they were in the present at that time, where the crew encounters the mysterious Gary 7, who claims to be sent by advanced beings trying to help Earth. Season finale. Teleplay by Art Wallace, story by Gene Roddenberry and Art Wallace, directed by Mark Daniels, obviously all veterans of the series. Aired on March 29, 1968. Weird to be a season finale so early, particularly of a series that had 26 episodes in a season, which means there were not a ton of weeks where it wasn't on. Yeah. On a show that was always in the bottom half of the Nielsen ratings, which is why it got canceled all the time. So let's jump into it. And at the end of it, we'll come back. We have some fun facts as well. So Peter, talk to me about how you're feeling about Assignment Earth, or if you prefer, just Earth.
Well, Assignment Earth it's an interesting story. It's one of the only ones really that has time travel as kind of like this, thing that we do.
It's just like changing a pair of shoes, which I found it so weird, because you're right. I mean, Kirk's opening narration, we're on assignment to study the past. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. We're doing historical research, and we've used the slingshot maneuver, which you've seen in multiple episodes before. And now we're just going to chill out in the 20th century and just, watch.
We're just going to stand up here and go beep, 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 beep. And I love it how he's given his opening log, which he explains all of this. But I love his long pause when he says, to study events in the year 1968. Like he had to go look at his phone. Where the hell are we again?
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I've got such a hangover. Leave me alone.
I hate time travel, man. Where are we? When are we? I don't know.
Oh my God. So they're just hanging out, and then there's a boop. There's a beep bop boop.
That there's a incoming transporter beam, and they're like, wait, what? And they go down, and
there's a lot of what's.
And they initialize the rematerialization, and there's a dude in a suit.
Just a dude
and
with
a cat.
And I'm like, yeah, huh? Our original 7 of Star Trek, which I put in my notes here. Gary 7, I wrote, he's tits, man. This guy is the dude. I love him. Robert Lansing is his name, which I love because Lansing is our state capital here in Michigan. Mm-hmm. We're a very Michigan-focused Star Trek podcast. And boy, we'll talk a little bit more in the notes about why we didn't see him again, but there's certainly a lot of this is very much a softball, the way that this episode wraps up with the character. But I'm super psyched about this character from the jump, because very mysterious. What is he doing here? He appears to be a human being, and he did a trans-dimensional, transgalactic transporter beam and showed up. So it's like, what the F?
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely an interstellar transporter beam, because he says, I'm from another planet.
What?
And they're like, what? And I think they say he's from Tau Ceti C, and then don't identify exactly where that is, which, whatever.
Yeah, it's a something.
But then he's starting to explain like what he's doing. It's like, well, I'm here to observe humanity doing stuff and to make sure that nothing goes horrifically wrong, because could be bad. He's very vague about what he's there for.
He's the 21st essentially essence of the vague booking on Facebook.
Yeah, he's definitely
that guy. Well, I'm going through a lot of things right now, and I really don't want to talk about it.
But it's kind of a big deal for me. So if you really want to help me, you should let me do my thing. Like, it's just like, okay,
I did a thing, but I can't talk about it.
Yeah. So he's also like undercover. He makes that clear. Like no one on Earth knows who he is. They put him in the brig because they're like, this guy's super suspicious.
Yeah.
And then in our first basically cross franchise reference. He pulls out what he calls a servo, but is designed suspiciously like a sonic screwdriver. From
That
Doctor
was
Who.
my question, because Doctor Who's been around since 1963. This is 1968 production-wise. My question is, did Doctor Who always have a sonic screwdriver, or did
he had
it
a
come later?
sonic
Okay.
screwdriver from episode 1, and
Right.
it literally was like a silver pen at the
Right,
beginning.
which is pretty much what this is, except for it's got two little bobbers sticking out the
two little
side.
prongs on the side that light
Right.
up. Which
And-
hilariously, I think, just as a side note, the early Doctor Who sonic screwdrivers had like a ring with the extra gem in it, and you slid it and it did something, which is kind of what Gary does.
So it's a slider pen,
or
one of those ones with the 5 colors.
Yeah, but when they rebooted the show, then it had a blue light, like Gary 7 servo.
I
there's
love
kind of
it.
some cross pollination going on.
It's the snake eating its own tail. So I wrote, Gary 7 is as scrappy as fuck. It's awesome, but he's because he beats up the guards back there, and then, but he's no match for getting shot in the back by Kirk with a phaser. Who would be?
I mean,
so he's holding Isis the cat. She's a black cat. And this is still in the transporter room, so I'm just kind of backing up a little bit. But she's meowing away, and I look at my 3 cats, and I'm like, girls, I need a translation. What is she talking about? Because, and I know that put this in my notes later, because Gary 7 can understand what the cat's saying, so she's kind of like the Chewbacca to his Han Solo. Like, yes, Isis, I blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
I just absolutely love it. All right, so Gary's like, I'm here on a mission, there's some shit going on, and he escapes because he uses his screwdriver to mystify the big bohunk security guard, and he says, you're very sleepy, you're going to take a nap. So it's kind of like it gets you high, like it's like an LSD shooter. He's like, oh yeah, okay. He escapes and he goes to basically the regional manager's office, because it's not his office. And it's cool because later on the address gets said, and I looked it up, but I'll save that. I looked up where it was at, and I'll talk about that later on in my notes. But he gets in there, and it's an apartment in a building, and it's just a regular looking office, and nobody's there. But he walks into the he pops out of the teleporter in the office, which is behind what looks like it's a bank vault with some file drawers in it. But when it opens up, it's a blue light, and he jumps through it like the Guardian of Forever.
Yep.
And he finds out that the agents assigned to the mission that he is now helping out with are dead. They died in a car crash. Just some random shit. And he's like, oh, it's so senseless because they, later he says they're descendants of humans removed from this planet 6,000 years ago, and they spent generations learning how to do this. And I'm like,
as was he.
As was he, yeah. So it's just so he's just a normal mortal, as evidenced by the fact that he can get shot in the back with phaser, and later he gets bonked over the head with a box. So it's like he doesn't have super alien powers. He's just a dude. He does look out the window holding Isis, and they use stock footage because it's New York City, and he's like, "Oh, how primitive!" And I'm like, "Dude, have you been to New York City, the most exciting city on earth? F you, primitive. It's so rude." I love him talking. So the computer, which just looks like a regular stock computer from Star Trek, is called Beta 5, and it's really got an attitude. And he has a great line. I have little love for Beta 5 snobbery, because the thing is like giving him shit because he's like, well, I need information. Well, I don't have record of you being assigned here. And it's just like, unlike Kirk, he doesn't have Kirk's. If Kirk was there, the computer would have done what he said, because Kirk talks like 8 computers to death during the course of the show. Spock has 2 winning looks because Kirk and Spock then go to pursue him. Spock has to cover up his ears, so shades of other visits to Earth, like in Star Trek 4. But he's wearing like this big wool hat, because obviously this is taking place in like November, December, or at least it looks that way, because
doesn't he wear like a Gilligan's Highland hat, basically?
That happens later, because later they end up in the second half of the episode, they're down in Gilligan's hat. I was trying to name it. I thought it looked like a fisherman's hat.
I don't know. I think it is a fisherman's hat, but
the little buddy hat.
To me, it just reminds me of Gilligan.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. But so he has that hat, and then he has the fisherman's hat later on in the episode because he's just trying to cover up his ears. we get introduced to Roberta Lincoln, played by the magnificent and recently departed Terry Garr, who was in the next year on a great show called Laugh-In, which, Peter, I'm sure you've never heard of.
Correct.
But it was a variety show from the 1960s that riffed off of tropes of the time. So like hippie stuff, and do some Googling and look for it on YouTube. It's mildly amusing, but she was one of the stars. I said maybe this is the same building where Mad Men takes place, but unfortunately when I looked it up, it's in a totally different part of town, because the building where Mad Men took place, and I don't know if you've ever sampled the show, is actually marked on Google Maps, because it's in a certain real building in Midtown, where this is not in Midtown, but again, I'll save that for later. I love Beta 5 running down Roberta's stats when Gary confronts her, says, "Who are you?" And the computer starts talking, and it's describing her, and it says, even though she seems I'm paraphrasing, even though she seems pretty dumb, she's really pretty smart. She also has a mole on her leg, and then she's got a larger star-shaped mole on her. Wait a second. I think it's funny. And it's funny, they never really get to the bottom of what she did there, because Gary says, "What kind of work did you think you were doing?" "Oh, I was working for a man and a woman who were doing research for a new encyclopedia." No? Like, did she not know what the hell she was doing there? Did I miss something of why she was acting that way?
No, I think she is just supposed to be kind of the clueless companion. This is part of why I think that they're riffing on Doctor Who hard.
Because she's the companion. Yeah. Right. Okay, the address that she gives is 811 East 68th Street, apartment 12, which she uses when Kirk and Spock show up and they're trying to stop Gary from escaping to the rocket site, because he's supposed to, his mission is to do something in relation to a rocket launch that's happening down in Florida. Yep. But East 68th Street, apartment 12 is on the upper east side of Manhattan, so it's east of Central Park, on the East River near Roosevelt Island. The building on Google Maps appears to be this huge hospital complex. And the dot was actually right in the middle of the road. So maybe that's actually not a real address. But I just thought, I love shit. I love maps, and I love New York City.
Of course, it's just been bulldozed since the 60s.
Well, that's basically, I don't know if how much you know about New York City, but there are large swaths of the riverfront, downtown and the Battery and everything, that are made of literal garbage that people dumped into the river to extend the length of the island.
Yeah, I know. I heard that.
Yeah, and trust me, there's still plenty of garbage to go around. I was in New York City a month ago, but again, greatest city on earth, in my opinion. Seven gets away through his little portal when the cops come. I love those like 1960s overcoats that they're wearing. That's a cool look. One of them, Kirk says, "Wide beam us all up." So it's Kirk and Spock and the two cops get beamed up. And the one cop says to the young
Roberta.
Yeah, but not Roberta. He says, the older cop says, the younger cop goes, "Charlie says my name in New Yorkese. So look, I'm a Star Trek character now," because there's a dumb-faced cop who's like, "What?" So yeah, Gary's in Florida, and I said, "Bro, go to LA, not FLA, because Florida sucks." I'm not a fan, but that's where
NASA launches stuff.
That's where they do. And so yeah, he uses his screwdriver again on a local cop. That just makes people cool the F out, which I wrote, which is great tech.
Yeah.
Back up on the Enterprise. Now they're hanging out in the transporter room, but you've seen before, to the left of Scotty's console in the corner, there's a screen and the little thingy. So he's using that, and I love this shit. He's using that to tie in with an old satellite. You see my air quotes. That apparently is so powerful because he continues to zoom in that he sees a matching shot later of Gary up on the gantry messing around with the thing. But it makes one of my favorite Star Trek sound effects that goes bong gong gong gong. Bong when it zooms in.
Yeah, that sound. Yep.
I mean, Star Trek's known for a lot of great sound effects, but I happen to like,
especially the original series has some pretty wild ones.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of handy dandy real world footage of rocket based stuff kind of integrated in. I did note earlier, because again, when you watch this in remastered, which is on Paramount Plus, and it's the physical release and the digital release. I watch mine usually on the digital release because I could watch it on Paramount Plus, but I'm like, you know what, I paid for these, so I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it here. That you can see what portions of the film were able to be restored and which of them, not even just the footage stuff, but even the primary footage is pretty degraded.
Yeah.
You would have to imagine they did the best they could. And it's also evident of, and they spent a lot of money doing it, and they are not spending that same amount of money doing it for DS9 and Voyager, which sucks, which is why we'll never have them, I'm sure, as HD releases. But yeah, now we're seeing, like I said, Gary 7. I wrote, I keep calling him G7 and the Kitty, which is for me a great cover band, and it's a title contender for the episode. Unless we come up with a better one. They're out there on the gantry, and he's in there working with the wood and string because he's doing the thing like, remember when Uhura's down there fixing something on the Enterprise? It was kind of the wood string. It looked a little better, but he's like going beep, 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 beep. And he looks like he's pushing all the insets where the wires aren't, and it's making noises. I'm like, is that really how that works? Who cares? But Isis is standing behind him going, meow, sure. Meow, meow. And so I said, well, she's like Chewbacca to G7's Han. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's a little ridiculous that Scotty's satellite tie-in can zoom in as close as what we're seeing Gary on the long shot of Gary laying on a gantry playing with the bits of string. This is when we see your fishing hat, but I prefer the Gilligan hat. Maybe that'll be the Spock and the Gilligan hat. Maybe that'll be the episode.
Another band.
Hold on. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll change it. You start talking.
Yeah, so they get so they beam Gary 7 up, and then he goes back to work on he goes back to the office and works with the Beta 5. And let's see, I'm trying to go back over it.
Yeah, in the Enterprise locks in, tries to beam him up, but Roberta's in the office, and she starts going beep, bop, boop, and just turning dials and shit, and somehow that snatches him out of the Enterprise transporter room because he was materializing, but then she's like, and then
he messes with it, and then he gets back to the office, even though
which she did, obviously she didn't know what the hell she was doing.
Yeah. So clearly Beta 5 was helping her, I guess.
I'm guessing, because she doesn't, I mean, even though she's smarter than she looks, she doesn't seem terribly bright. But yeah, so Gary starts talking to her and says, well, I have to do this thing and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, the rocket launches, and whatever Gary did or something, basically the whole purpose of this is it's launching an orbital nuke to hang out in orbit in case it's needed. Well, it malfunctions and it falls off of the rocket. And then, so this is being reported on the bridge. So you got Chekhov sitting at science, Sulu standing over his shoulder. And now Sulu mentions the Euro-Asian continent as a place where it's going to land. What is the Euro-Asian continent? Is that everything like basically east of the UK and west of Russia?
So it's just a different way to just call the combined landmass of Europe and Asia is just Eurasia. So if you don't feel like distinguishing Europe and Asia, because I mean, from space they look like one landmass. They are not tectonically, but But yeah, you can call them he just calls it Eurasia because it sounds special, I guess.
Right.
And you're not wrong when you do that.
Yeah, very true. So we're at the point that the tension is ramping up. The thing is going to blow up. Terry's got a great line here where she says, she says, of course I care about what's going on. That's kind of why my whole generation is a bit crazy, because we're all wondering if we're going to be alive when we're 30. Well, good news, they were, and that's how we got the yuppies in the 80s, because all the hippies made it. Well, a lot of the hippies made it. Kirk and Spock now show up after Roberta bonks him on the head with a box because she doesn't trust him. Kirk and Spock show up, and Kirk's like, Spock, fix whatever the hell it is he did. So Spock's messing around with the Beta 5, but he doesn't really know what he's doing, because how could he? It's a super advanced computer even for him. And then Roberta says, let him go. And she grabs the sonic screwdriver and she's going to zap Kirk. And Gary snatches it out of her hand and says, this is set to kill. Don't do that. And so that wins over Kirk's trust, and he lets Gary go back because Gary says, well, I have to detonate this thing at no more than 100 miles from Earth. Otherwise, we're all screwed. And so Gary does it. And as it turns out, and then we have a wrap-up scene with Kirk and Spock. They're back in uniform, so it's obviously at a later point. They said, well, what had actually happened is recorded in history that there was a misfire by the United States, and the rocket was safely detonated at 100 miles above the Earth, and it scared the nations of the Earth to back off the program of everybody having orbiting nukes, which, of course, Spock alludes to earlier is, with all these nukes up there, one of them could fall and land wherever, and then it would be nuclear war all over the place.
Yep.
So,
which, we didn't put nuclear platforms in space, so that was kind of it. But we did get Star Wars.
Yes, in the 80s, yeah. And then Spock does save it by saying, hey, it was not generally known, which of course means that it's fiction, it never happened. Or maybe it's not fiction and it never happened. I have no idea. It was
covered up. Ooh.
But I love this. So I wrote Kirk and Spock let him do his thing, and history does its thing. and they make it all good, but that kind of likens them to Indiana Jones's role in Raiders of the Lost Ark, which the whole thing is that he never affected the plot anyway. What happened would have happened. But you know what? I wrote If You Know, You Know, which I just explained. So I guess now you know. Yeah. So, Roberta's standing in the background of the scene with all these guys, with these three guys talking, and the cats, Isis is sitting there going, meow, meow, meow. And then she turns back, and then Isis is this like sex kitten looking woman instead of a cat. Mm-hmm. And then she goes, Mr. Lincoln, what the hell, or Mr. Lincoln, Mr. Seven, what is this? Says, well, that Miss Lincoln is my cat. She turns back and she's a cat again. So I'm like, okay. Yeah,
it's just interesting.
That's pretty good that she turned back into a cat, because I feel like Kirk would try to hook up with it if too much time went by. And now we get the very softball-y hand up where Kirk and Spock say, well, we can't tell you, Kirk, well, it looks like you guys might get into some more adventures. And the Kirk's like, well, we really can't tell you everything, but it's suffice to say you got some interesting experiences in store for you. And I'm like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So we'll get into that in a second, kind of why they did that. But anyway, that's the end of the episode. So this is one of the kind of few, not even the few, but one that I enjoyed the hell out of this. This was a 10 for me. I probably could have even put this in. I don't know if this showed up at all in our rankings. I forget, because we talked about
I don't remember if it did or not
in our rankings, but I absolutely loved it. I said it rocked. It's a big tee up for a pilot that doesn't happen, which we'll talk about a little bit more when we get into the fun facts. But I wrote, so the F what? I mean, the 60s contemporary stuff was really great, and a charismatic. That gets revisited as a concept in Voyager, and then again in Enterprise, where they visit the present. And so I love that. I think they did it really well.
Even though hilariously, the Enterprise one is definitely not where they say they are.
Oh my God. Well, they said it in Detroit, and I was watching in 2003, and I'm like, the parting shot of that, you see mountains in the background. And I said, well, I'm from Grosse Pointe, Michigan, never saw a mountain looking anywhere when I turned around in Metro Detroit. And because I was living in Detroit, Metro Detroit at the time. Mm-hmm. But I love the pacing. I love the dramatic tension. I think it was pretty well edited. The social messaging, I think, was super strong, because this was the dawn of the nuclear race that continued on, and in a lot of ways continues on to this day, unfortunately. And Terry Garr was great, even though, and again, I didn't find a lot more about this, but she apparently had a very difficult time making this episode as a guest star. And I've read, and again, she passed away just I think just last year, maybe the year before that. I read that she has refused to ever talk about this experience in any interview between now and the time that she passed away. So it must have been pretty bad, but that's top rough. Marks all around. And I'm glad to say we haven't had World War III just yet, but let's hope we don't get there.
We do know that this episode wasn't the inciting incident anyway. So
yeah, very good. I love it. How about you? Where do you land with this one?
I probably put this one at like a 8.5, mostly because it kind of, at least for me, it very much feels like Kirk and Spock and the gang are just kind of side characters.
Yeah.
In the episode, it's not as much of. It's clearly very much not a Star Trek focused episode.
Right.
It's very much focused on Gary and Roberta and all of their stuff.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Sure.
But it's just weird when you stick like a very obvious, like, hey, we want another show episode in there.
Yeah,
it was like one of the first, like, hey, let's get a cinematic universe before cinematic universes were a thing.
Right. Trying to do a spin. It was like Batman 66, which was on at roughly, it was on at the same time, had in, I don't know which of the three seasons they had on an adaptation of the Green Hornet, which was another comic character at the time, was the first, one of the first professional acting jobs of Bruce Lee before he became Bruce Lee. Oh, yeah. And I couldn't even tell you the name of the guy. And he played Kato, who was the side man. So he was the Robin to the Batman that was the Green Hornet. And it was the same thing. I think they were really trying to tee him up, and now I can't remember if that show actually got greenlit, but it didn't make it. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it was the same kind of thing. And so I'm bummed out that that Gary 7 Chronicles, whatever the hell you want to call it, didn't go to series, because I Love the setup. There's so much that they can do, and I will talk about
It
in the fun.
gets
The fun facts
revisited
here.
in a couple things. It's actually revisited in Excelsior. We won't tell you why, but we
Excelsior,
revisit.
the Excelsior that you're a part of.
Yes, Excelsior the fan series. We actually we don't revisit Gary Seven himself, but we revisit the whole concept.
Oh, very good. More reason, and you'll give your plug at the end of where people can find that. And I know a new episode just came out. So, all right, let's talk some fun facts. The episode was designed, and we've danced around this a bit. This episode was designed partly as a pilot for a new series featuring Gary Seven and his mission. Star Trek was teetering on the brink of cancellation late in its second year. When wasn't it? And Roddenberry hoped to get a new show going for the fall season. The first draft pilot script from November of 1966 had no mention of Star Trek or its characters. Well, he would have written that quite a bit in advance. If this would have been filmed in, and again, we can jump back to the notes. This would have been filmed in late 1967 or mid 1967. So he would have written this probably a year before that. So I get it. Obviously, Assignment Earth did not enter production as a television series, but Seven and Roberta were featured in several stories, and they spun off into a comic book series by IDW Publishing, Star Trek Assignment Earth by John Byrne, who is a creative favorite of mine. I talk about him all the time. He's a very weird dude. He was on my bucket list for interviews for a long time until I dug in and learned a little bit more about him, and now he's not. So... but he did do some really great stuff, revitalized the Fantastic Four in the 1980s and did great work with any Marvel and DC, revitalized Superman post-crisis in the late 1980s. Just a lot of really good stuff. So love the work, don't necessarily have to love the creator, which is kind of a time-honored old story. According to the Star Trek Compendium, the first draft of the script had the Enterprise bridge crew watching an episode of Bonanza. That would have been fantastic. But that's a little on the nose.
Just a little bit, yeah.
One of the biggest shows out there. So the plot concept of benevolent aliens secretly helping Earthlings as opposed to the much more common villain alien scenarios was later resurrected by Roddenberry for his movie, The Questor Tapes, which I don't feel like I've ever watched, but I've certainly heard of it. Have you ever seen it?
The Questor Tapes?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I have.
Gotcha. An anachronism, something is called tapes. Robert Lansing, who is Gary Seven, is the only Star Trek, the original series guest star whose credit appears in the opening credits instead of during the end credits. Ooh, complete with character name. The fact that this episode was to serve as a pilot for a proposed spinoff explains this. Let's see here. The events of the episode taking place in 1968 occurred over a year after those of Tomorrow Was Yesterday, which took place in 1969, which was from season 1, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Yeah, I like that. As the episode it takes place entirely in 68, there are no scenes set in the 23rd century, along with Enterprise's Stormfront, which takes place in 1944. This is one of 2 Star Trek episodes based entirely in the 20th century. Furthermore, both episodes take place mostly in and around New York City.
Yeah. One thing that I find quite fun is that all the rocket stuff is actually, like they're saying it's a nuclear missile. It's actually the Apollo missions. They're pulling footage from NASA.
That's awesome.
Like, they're a combination of stock footage of 3 different rockets.
Yeah.
So one was the test vehicle for, it's technically Apollo 2, but it's not really.
Yeah.
And then we had Apollo 6, which was launching another test, and then we had another test one, which was launching of Apollo. So the footage of the rocket actually taking off is of Apollo 4, which it's not. If you look in the Apollo missions, it's not going to be listed as Apollo 4 exactly because it's listed as a test mission, but there's reasons for that.
Right.
But yeah, so all of this is actually like footage that they got from Cape Canaveral, which I think is pretty great. So the fun thing is, since it's all publicly accessible, you don't have to pay for it. So
yeah, right. Everybody likes that. That works for everybody.
Special effects budget went down.
Oh my gosh. Good stuff. We win. East 68th Street, which I was talking about the locale a little bit earlier, is also the street that was the home for the main characters in the Desilu TV series I Love Lucy. I would assume it's a little closer to Central Park since the address is right on the river. And it's funny, Roosevelt Island, which kind of lands in between, is also a setting for the climactic battle of 2002's Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, which we talked about. Peter missed that, but Andy and I talked about it.
I love that movie, but I missed that conversation.
Yeah, on the our last episode of Oops All Thunderdome episode of our main show, Secret Friends Unite.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that is the end of talking about that episode. So we will, until we get to new content, which is just a couple of months down the road with Strange New Worlds Season 4, we will continue randomizing episodes. We've had a schedule set for a while now. But I would say when we get to a point when we're looking for new ones, particularly if you're a Patreon, who'll always put Patreons first because of how they support the show. If you'd like to play the game, let us know. Hit us up on social medias. If you're like, hey, I'd like to, give me a series, and then we'll spin it. And
or
then
even if it's not random and you're just like, talk about this episode. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that too. If it's not something we already have on the schedule, and again, I'm a bit of a schedule nerd, so we have a schedule, but it's always flexible. It's always flexible. So yeah, I would love to have somebody hit us up with a thought about, hey, talk about blah, blah, blah. And we absolutely will do it. So cool. All right. Well, let's segue, as it were, into talking about our top fives and bottom fives of Star Trek Voyager.
Indeed.
Yeah, Star Trek Voyager, of course, aired between 1995 and 2001 on the now defunct UPN, United Paramount Network. It actually launched the series and gave us a ton of memorable characters, including the first starring role of a female Starfleet captain, Catherine Janeway, who is, of course, beloved by many, many fans, certainly that I've met. Mm-hmm. But we're going to do it in the same format. We'll go around robin. We'll toss out an episode we liked in no particular order, at least not in my regard.
Yeah.
And then each of us will toss out one that we didn't like, and some might conflict, and we might have to double up. So we just kind of keep it loose. But Peter, I've done all the yapping to tee this up. So why don't you give me an episode that you loved?
All right. So I put two-parters together because they tell one story, just because it's easier that way. Because yes, technically maybe part two is better than part one, but you don't get the whole thing unless you get both.
True.
So one that it came immediately to mind when I was starting it, so it's at the top of my list for now, is Scorpion parts 1 and 2.
Oh, but of course.
Which, of course.
Absolute classic.
Yeah, it's the season 3 to 4 bridge. So, between season cliffhanger, oh no, we have the Borg. So this is just a very, very well done episode. We introduce an alien race, species 8472, that is, very dangerous, can actually put the Borg in their place into worrying.
Yeah, right.
So we get a race that's actually, and the thing that I like about that is, like, the Borg are still treated as supernally dangerous, but then are pitted against an enemy that is as dangerous, if not a little bit more than they are, which I think is a good way to do it, which we don't get as much later on, but this one does it very, very well. It also puts Voyager in between these two and be like, we be bug, we be squished if we get in the middle of this.
Ant boot.
Yeah.
Like Nick Fury said.
Exactly. Yeah. It's exactly like that. But the hilarious thing is that through this whole bit, Voyager is very influential isn't the right word, but they're a key element to helping the Borg win the conflict by actively redeveloping the nanites, which only comes back to bite them in the ass later.
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
So I thought that was great. We also get our introduction to 7 of 9.
Pivotal character for the rest of the series. Yep.
She does a fantastic job as Borgified 7 of 9. And then obviously she gets all of her implants removed in the next couple episodes.
Right. But except for the ones that will always
malfunction. For the ones that are always there.
So that we will continue to have storylines out of it for the rest of the series.
but like, there's a lot of tension here. There's a lot of like, should we, shouldn't we? There's, the enemy of my enemy is my friend bit. So there's a lot of like really interesting character beats and storytelling moments in this episode. And some great like arguments and debates between Janeway and Chakotay about like, what are we going to do with this?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it's crafted episode.
And there's a fake out at the end where, Chakotay is kind of, because he has a Borg connection because a couple of episodes earlier, he was healed by Borg. So he has a connection. He's able to disable 7 at the last minute. So they're able to escape because of course she does, much like the parable that the episode is named for, but plays her part until she has an opportunity to betray our characters. And then they know that she's going to do that because she's the Scorpion that stings Is it what is the what is this thing on the back? The bear cat, the squirrel. What the hell's the thing?
I don't remember the name of the.
What the hell's the thing swimming across the river?
Fable,
it's a fox. I think it's a fox.
I think it's a fox. Yeah, but it's a fable of Aesop that goes all the way back. So yeah,
all the way back. Yeah, no, totally agreed. And yeah, I will admit I didn't. I figured we'd end up talking about that, but I ended up picking. I had some more non-traditional picks.
Yeah.
So my first pick, it's from season 2. When we covered season 2, I think Kay was one of our co-hosts at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking about this with her, was the episode Resolutions, which was at the end of that season. You take a great sci-fi premise, we're poisoned by a whatever, and only the atmosphere of this planet will keep us from dying from it. So that essentially, and it's Chakotay and Janeway.
Yep.
And then Tuvok taking over as captain, though he never he never changes his outfit, which is dumb because I'm like, okay, you're acting captain now. So
the name of the episode left my brain, but I kept thinking of that episode as I was making this list.
Yeah,
so,
grab yourself some extra pips and get a red uniform. But he never does because he's doesn't give thought to such things. But you have
that I require. The uniform change is illogical.
Exactly. Don't want to waste that replicator space, and he wouldn't quite fit into Janeway's outfit.
Also, just don't want to waste the budget of the show to give him a new uniform he's going to wear for 15 minutes.
Exactly, because obviously at the end of it, because it's TV episodically, it's going to be resolved. But you're addressing the sexual tension that has clearly existed between these two characters for 2 seasons. And it's ended by a great speech that Chakotay is again using euphemisms of Native American culture, which of course in retrospect ended up being pretty controversial, but for the purpose of this. And then they end with a great shot of 2 of them holding hands and tears streaming down Janeway's face, and then they cut out. So you don't really know, and that's been the debate for decades. What happened after that happened? Because I don't know about you, but in a quasi-similar situation, I'm pretty sure I know what happens. But that's my life.
Yeah.
But I like that because, I think a lot of us have been in a situation, forbidden love, or you don't want to take the next step because you're going to jeopardize a friendship or you're going to jeopardize something work related. Yeah. And a lot of us fuck that up, myself many times over the years. But I like it because it really it resonated with me. Yeah. And it also really resonated with me. Tuvok sticking to his guns, and then him, really, you had Harry Kim stepping out of his role being the dutiful little ensign to fight for them to get them back. We brought the Vidians back. Now, by this point, we were almost out of having the Vidians as a part of a show because, again, one of the tropes of the show in general is that as they travel through the galaxy, certain races they're going to leave behind. So we were, I think, kind of at the useful end of when we were seeing the Vidians anymore. And we got a call back to a couple episodes prior where the Doctor had a Vidian girlfriend and she was the one who was able to help them out and get the remedy that they needed. And then they went back and saved them. So anyway, I liked it. It was a good one for me.
It was a good one.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some bad. Give me one that you didn't like.
So this one might be a slightly controversial, maybe, depending on what you think.
Gasp.
Fairhaven.
That was because you and I looked at the same list, which I just got from IMDb, and it was, I believe, ranked by simply ratings that people gave them, and they ranked it like that. And I saw this one in the Spirit Folk, which was it was either the episode that was the sequel or it was the other way around.
Spirit Folk was the spiritual successor to this one.
Gotcha. Continuation of the story. So, I was going to say stereotypes much, and particularly riffing on my ancestral culture.
Stereotypes, and I'm
bad.
I'm like a third Irish, so I find it a little annoying. It's not the fact that I'm a third Irish; it's the fact that I lived there.
I'm basically probably almost 3/4 Irish. So and have been there as well. So I do find it offensive.
I lived there for 8 months. So 9 months. Okay. So it was just one of those like, okay. Stereotypes exist for a reason. I get it, but it's still one of those like, okay, we're kind of leaning into it a little too much.
Right. So is that the one where Harry kisses the cow, the holographic cow, or is that the other one?
I think that's the next one where because it's Tom's just messing with him.
Right.
Because at first it's not as bad, but like this one, you get like, the Doctor is playing the parish priest. It's like, I see you sinners on Sunday, and I was a little annoyed by that. Because it's like, that's not how Catholics do things, but all right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, so there's some like interesting stuff, some interesting character things. The thing that really like dragged it down for me though was the fact that Janeway went in and edited the bartender to be her romantic interest.
Delete the wife.
Specifically that line. But like other things, it's like, I get that they're computer programs and you can do that. But the fact that like you've been attracted to that version of the character and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm just going to change him. It kind of like, yes, he's fictional. Yes, you can technically do that, but does that belie a certain psychological standpoint that's not healthy? And that kind of explore that in the episode,
right?
But not terribly well.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those episodes where it's like, I get it. There's a lot of fun things in there. It's a program that the crew uses to blow off steam. Even with Tom's mess ups, like the heart being backwards and that sort of thing.
God, terrible.
But it's just not one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So I know that lots of people like it, but it's just
it's farcical, and again, it's a little disrespectful to the culture. But so I'd love to get
par for the course for the time, especially in American television. So it's not surprising.
True.
And actually, that kind of stereotype continues even to this day. So it's not something that's gone, but it's just
stereotypes will never be gone. It's comic fodder forever. I'd love to hear our friend Sean Ferrick's take on that. Maybe I will ask him.
Maybe he's got a different take. Maybe he likes it. I don't know. I wouldn't expect him to.
I know. I doubt it. I don't think he's particularly fond of that. He's talked about, I think, the Miles O'Brien character as well. But I don't want to speak for him. But I know that it's been. I think the stereotypes have been addressed. But all right. Well, I'll go with the lowest hanging fruit. This was the bottom rated episode, and I totally agree. It was season 5's The Fight.
Oh gosh, I didn't put it on my list because it was like. Yeah, and I'm not gonna mention.
Yeah, that one. It's not even the lowest hanging fruit. It's rotting under the ground. So I called this the never-ending struggle to give Chakotay something interesting to do. Yet it turns into another Alien of the Week misfire. And again, I'm riffing these from memory, having seen each episode at least 5 or 6 times over the last 25, almost 30 years. It's great to get Ray Wise back as Boothby, who is
that's always fun.
Yeah, that's great, but I couldn't tell you what this episode has to do with anything. It's Chakotay's, he's having a vision of boxing and blah, blah, blah. And
it's just kind of like he has to get his shit together. And it's kind of like this ongoing, like, third act of Rocky thing.
Right, right.
Which is like, okay. I don't know. Like, it's it's not great.
And again, it's a valiant effort to get something interesting.
And I get it. Like Chakotay, after a certain point, like they just completely biffed on writing good material for him. Like they just kind of forgot that he existed, which I was rather annoyed with.
Yeah.
Because at least in the first bunch of seasons, Chakotay's a really interesting, complex character, could be used for a lot of things, and then he just kind of fades into the background and gets crap like this.
They're like, it's pulling out the dartboard of who are we going to make an episode about?
And it's one of those reasons that you, like, some people complain about, like Robert Beltran kind of phoning it in the last season. You see how the character is used. I get it.
Yeah, how would you feel? Would you be half-assing your way through it just to get a check because you're like, well, I don't really believe them.
Yeah, it's like they're not using my character well, and I'm just kind of bored. And this is one of those episodes. So
as opposed to mine, I'm going to flip with you just because I segued in. So I'll do a great one, and then we'll flip back to you. But this was a Chakotay story that I really liked, and he was a primary character in this, and that would be season 3's Distant Origin.
Okay, that is.
And so this is, so this was right around the time. So this was in the spring of 97. So it was the end of season 3. And I had kind of given up on the show in the fall of 96 because I'm like, I didn't love the resolution to basics, which was the kind of the Kazon 2-parter where they all got stranded. I'm like, this show is dumb. They're not doing it. And then I think I might have watched the Sacred Ground episode, which was another one that ended up in the toilet for this rating. So I quit it for maybe 4 or 5 months. but then drifted, and just focused on Deep Space Nine. And then I drifted back into this. But I love this premise, the overall premises of this. And again, it's told, half of the story is told through the eyes of what are basically sentient bipedal people-sized dinosaurs or big lizards. And it's about their journey across space to research a theory in their society called the distant origin theory, which is that their species came from a distant planet, and on that planet there was another sentient species, and they want to find out about them. So they revisit clues that were former settings of the show. They go to the one outpost that the ship visited that's just going into the Necrit Expanse, which is a big thing at the beginning of season 3. They go to the planet where they were all stranded in the episode I just mentioned, and they find the bones of Ensign Hogan, who was the guy who got eaten by the big lizard. They find his like scrappy uniform, and this is when it also shows that on the back of everybody's either rank badge or comm badge, it has their name on it, like etched in. So they say, well, this dude's name was Hogan. And then
which
eventually,
I think is a really neat detail.
I think it's a very neat detail. Eventually, they catch up with Voyager, and these two guys, and they also have little cloaking shields. One of them futzes, and the guy appears. And there's two guys. One guy gets knocked out and taken to sick bay. The other guy kidnaps Chakotay, and they go back to his ship, and he fills Chakotay in on everything. The one left back on the ship, the Doctor and Janeway figure out that he is the descendant of a dinosaur into the shape of a
Parasaurolophus.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's super cool. And I love the end of the episode is that when the science guy takes Chakotay in front of the grand, like, queen of their society in this giant-sized city ship, which then also captures Voyager, she says, I don't dig your theory. It sucks. I don't want people to hear about it. So I'm going to kill all of the people on Voyager and this dude unless you renounce this, and you'll get a demotion, but we won't kill these guys. We'll let them go. And so he just has to agree. Chakotay says, well, dude, you can't give up your whole life for this thing. So you got to go.
It's very much the pop culture understanding of the Galileo incident.
Yeah.
Very, very much so, which is historically not how it happened. Ask me about it another time. But, but that is clearly what this is based on.
Right. So, all right. So that's me. So what do you got?
The next one that I have is Nothing Human. So this episode, the main plot is B'Elanna gets this big ass parasite bug that latches itself to her.
It's like person size. It's like the size of a.
It's the size of
like the size of a 5-year-old.
Yeah, it's huge. Exactly. So like, they can't get it off without killing her. It's this giant parasite thing. The Doctor's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have this extra information that might help. And so then he's like, well, create a hologram of the Doctor who did it. And lo and behold, the Doctor is a Cardassian. And
oh, crap.
Even worse, this Dr. Cardassian was a doctor.
He's a serial killer.
Well, he wasn't just a serial killer. He was the doctor at one of the work camps during the Cardassian occupation of Bajor.
Testing his pet theories out on human subject.
Exactly. So obviously this is a very thin analogy for the Nazi camps back in World War II. This is very, but it approaches like how Star Trek, when it does it well, sets it apart from the instant, even though I believe the Doctor makes a direct reference to what they're analogizing in the episode.
Right.
But we get the whole idea of this crazy, insane murderer doctor has information that the Doctor needs.
Right.
And that,
even though he's a hologram,
but like,
he's not the real dude.
He's not the real guy, but like, he's a hologram. The real guy, I think, is already dead.
Or something like that.
I think some Bajoran blew him up. But it gets the conundrum of this research was gained by some of the most horrifically immoral means ever.
Right.
What do I do? What can I do? Should I do anything with this? It's kind of the whole argument of like, does this honor their sacrifice, even though it was unintentional, or does it spit on their graves because now I'm using something that someone tortured them to get? And I like that it doesn't shy away from that question and just it throws it in your face very, very well. And the episode ends, obviously the Doctor ends up using the information because he has to save B'Elanna. But then his compromise is he deletes all of the information. which is different than what we did in real life. So I think it's interesting that we didn't go directly analogous in how it ends up happening in a way.
Right.
Because in real life, like, we got the research from the camps and we used what we learned because it was like, you can look up the reasoning, but we didn't get rid of it. So I thought that this episode touched a really sensitive issue in a good way. And handled it in a mature fashion without being being too 2x4-y.
Right, 2x4. I like that.
Yeah, because we all know that I love 2x4 episodes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Kind of just barrel on through. All right, cool. All right, I'll downshift and go back to a bummer of an episode. So I guess we've changed the flow of the river here. I actually talked about this episode on Mission Log with John Champion. It was kind of my 15 minutes of fame.
Yay.
It was season 6's Fury.
Okay.
And this is a great example. And again, please go listen to Mission Log and support that. They're actually on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but all their episodes can be found not only on their Patreon, but also their free feed. And John Champion is a great guy, and he's a friend. We stay in touch and would love to do some more work with him again someday. This was an episode. They brought Kess back 3 seasons after, 2 seasons, 2.5, almost. Well, this is the end of season 3, so it was almost like almost 3 years after she left. The beginning of season 3, she left at the end of season 6, and they've aged the character up, and the actress herself looks significantly a bit older. But they brought her back for a story that was kind of pointless, where she used her powers to touch the warp core, and in doing so killed B'Elanna in this present, and sent her back to the past, where she was going to then make sure that all the people on Voyager got killed. So you took this sweet, innocent, wonderful character who, in the time that she was gone, became a supervillain.
Yeah.
Who wanted to kill everybody.
Yeah.
So I said they brought her back for zero reason, and the character was far worse off for it. So you took a character who made a great noble sacrifice. She left the ethereal plane. She helped Voyager jump forward, I think, 10,000 light years, so they got free of Borg space. And it was just ugh on all counts.
Yeah.
It was a perfect example of, we got to fill 26 hours this season. Sometimes we're going to throw shit to the wall and see what sticks. And it's not like necessarily having just 10 episodes in a season currently for streaming. We get all gems, but I think we get a lot less bad ones. And this was a total loss for me.
Yeah, it's not a good one. I agree.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. All right, give me a bummer.
All right. So another bummer was Tsunkatse.
Such a paper thin.
The plot is just
promo event.
The plot's just not there.
And they waste J.G. Hertzler and Jeffrey Combs in this episode.
Yeah, they're both in it. They both do a good, and they don't do a whole lot.
It was all the reason to get the WWE, which was or F. I don't keep track of wrestling shit, but that was the other big property that was part of UPN, and this was at the crux of the meteoric rise of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, when he was simply known as The Rock when he was a wrestler, and they brought him in as a character, and they turned Seven into a wrestler.
Yeah, which made no sense. It was like, have Chakotay wrestle him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Chakotay's already a boxer, but no, Seven is the
especially because Chakotay's a boxer. It's just like,
in another bad episode that we
another bad episode which we already talked about. But so it's just the plot is just kind of shit. And like, Seven needs to believe in herself. Okay, all right, wonderful, and then we have this whole thing where The Rock does show up and he destroys her because it's in the contract that he can't lose.
That's right. It's that way in his movies right now. I think moving forward, he can never be in a fight scene he loses.
And the thing that's really dumb is, like, he's said to be like the champion, and so then he beats her, and then she has like this comeback moment to beat some other dude, and it's like, for better storytelling, she needed to defeat the champion. If you want to do this kind of story, that's what you need to do.
Follow through and do it.
Because of contracts and WWE, all of the external stuff, we couldn't do that, and so it robs the episode of any character development that's meaningful in story beat steps.
Yeah,
and it's just boring.
Yeah. There's no other way to slice it. There's no other way to slice it. So, all right. Well, let's talk some positivity. Here's an episode that I've always loved, and that would be season 4's Living Witness.
Yep.
A story, a premise that is just begging for a follow up with Starfleet Academy, which we know season 2 has been completed. The show has ended, and they've now sold off a bunch of the. They still, we could all be surprised because, again, even on the cruise, Bob Picardo alluded to some really incredible things happening in season 2. I would be delighted if they pick this up. But what happens is we have an alien species that they have a museum where they're retelling the history of their planet going back several hundred years through a series of artifacts that belong to Voyager. So this is set in the distant future. One of the artifacts, and I love this, is a backup module, holographic module for the Doctor that is a fully functional copy of him. And I'm like, haven't we gone through this a bunch of times where it's like when they sent him back to the Alpha Quadrant and the message in a bottle, they didn't have the backup.
It's a little contradictory, but I like it.
But it's, throughout the course of the episode, and we get a great portrayal of the Voyager characters as evil villains, and they're all super black, wearing black, Janeway with the short haircut, and everybody's got black gloves and black undershirts. They just all
deltas. It's just wild.
They just all look so gnarly, and it's hilarious, but it's also like, well, this is what can really happen when history is written by who the hell knows what, and you're going to get some details that make no sense.
It does throw. It's really cool in the fact that it throws an idea of like, we read this in a history book and we think that it's true. Maybe it didn't just happen like that.
Right.
So that's not to say like nothing in history happened or it didn't happen at all like that. No. But but depending on who wrote it, sometimes things get changed.
So the all evil versions are delicious, and we get great lines like Paris saying to Neelix, "Shut up, hedgehog," which just really stands out.
I just wonder if that was ad libbed. I never really looked it up.
Yeah, no, nothing ever in the Berman era was ever ad libbed. I saw another interview recently that really drove that home. And it's very different in the current incarnation, I said. But no, Berman as actors time and again.
That's true. Yeah, everyone was. It's always as written. So that's right.
You can't change the syllable. But at the end of it, the Doctor in this distant future, after proving that the thing was fabricated, he stayed in the society. This was being told even further in their future. He stayed in their society for a lot of years, but eventually jumped on a shuttlecraft and headed back to the Alpha Quadrant. So considering that the Doctor that we know is still functioning 800 years in the future from Voyager, could there be a chance that same Doctor that copy reappears and they interface with each other? So we may never know, but that would be super cool if that happened in a novel at some point by one of our many friends who write Star Trek novels that we've had over on the Spotlight. Maybe that's something that they will expand upon.
That would be neat.
Who knows? Who's to say? All right. Give me a good one.
All right. Another good one, at least for me, is, let's see. It would be Equinox.
Yeah, the two-parter. Yes. We get our first actual other Starfleet crew.
Yep, we get a first Starfleet crew, which actually feeds into the warship Voyager from Living Witness in a way, where they actually are doing dark and evil things.
Yeah, they're bad.
Yeah, so it's one of those things of like, hey, the Voyager got stranded and they didn't become terrible people. The Equinox got stranded and they lost their moral compass and did become evil people.
Right. So, and again, Equinox, much smaller ship.
Yep.
They lose half of their crew because they got to the Delta Quadrant and they went in a different way to get home. So they like if Voyager went left, these guys went right.
Yep.
And then they ran into some, I remember the name of the Kryptonian Guard, which it was a smaller ship, like 80 people. So half of them got killed.
It's like just a little bit bigger than Defiant.
Yeah. So from that point, they just started to erode and they were going to die. And they finally stumbled upon the ability to turn little neogenic aliens or whatever the hell it is. If they trap them, which they do by accident, they end up killing them off. And then they're like, we can use this on our engines and it'll work.
If we torture them, we can. If we torture them, we can power the ship. Isn't it just easier to find deuterium? Jeez.
Apparently they never did. Yeah, and also the ship was significantly less sophisticated than Voyager, so it couldn't even go.
Yeah, it couldn't go
the speeds that
quickly,
Voyager could go. So they would never have been able to get home.
Not in
unless
any
they did something
way,
shitty. So yeah, but we had actor, and I met the guy at a con back in 2010, and I'm going to forget his name, who played Ransom, John Savage.
Mm-hmm.
Great portrayal.
Oh,
We
he
also had an early appearance by actor Titus Welliver, who has become very big. We saw him in The Mandalorian, but he does a show called shit. It just escaped me, but it's on HBO, and people absolutely love it. Bosch, Bosch or Boss or something. He's not Bosch like from Star Wars, though. That's right what my head goes
That's
to.
Bosk, but yeah,
that's Bosk. Sorry, but yeah, no, I agree with you. Awesome episode.
Yeah, it's a great episode. Got lot of good things going for it, exploring like the nature of evil and how we can slip when we're put into a corner. So
easy slipping. Bad episode. This is low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Season 5's Once Upon a Time. Oh man. So we talked back in TNG about how focusing on the kids on the ship usually doesn't really pay dividends. Though I'm not going to rag on Wesley Crusher because I thought he was all right, but like the other kids. Now we have one child on this ship who was born there, and of course does the magic time slide aging. And this was a story focused around her and the fact that Neelix is her substitute, parental figure whenever her mom's not around. But her mom is on a mission, and they lose track of the Delta Flyer and blah blah blah. So it looks like she's not coming back. So Neelix is helping her cope, and we have venerable character actor Wallace Shawn playing Flotter, who is the holographic character in this children's storybook. It would be like if Goodnight Moon was a story that they made into a holodeck program. So it's stupid. And this is bad. And it's, and I'm not knocking on Scarlett Palmer's, who is a wonderful actress who went on to do many wonderful things. But in this role, she was completely obnoxious. And I really think, I think this came up on an episode of Mission Log I was listening to, this is the last time we ever see Ensign Wildman, and so Naomi just kind of left to raise herself for another 2 years.
Yeah,
we don't see actress Nancy Howard again.
About her a couple times, but we never see her.
Yeah, so it's just kind of a she might be back in that flashback episode that also in Fury, I think, where they also bring back or she gets mentioned in that, where they also bring back Joe Carey. Not the time that they bring him back again to kill him.
Yeah.
Which is we don't need to pontificate on that too much, but yeah, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So that's a bummer for me. All right, what's a bummer for you?
Another bummer for me. I'm gonna go with The Haunting of Deck 12.
Oh,
it's another child
kids, because we briefly had
episode
the Borg kids, and they were there, and they were thankfully then they were gone after like 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah. So this is basically. The B plot's just kind of whatever, and then this plot is all just Neelix telling like a ghost story in the commissary the whole time. Right. And it's like, ooh, it's scary. It's just okay.
It's not scary to anybody.
Yeah. So I barely like. Yeah. There's just not a whole lot going on. You do get the other characters in there, like they're in the story, but it's just not that interesting. There's like some vague anomaly, whatever going on, and people are disappearing or something. And it's just like,
or something.
It's kind of vague as to what's going on. Like any good ghost story, you kind of leave it nebulous until like the punchline at the end. And the punchline is just kind of shit.
Ooh, the punchline.
And so I remember when we talked about this when we were going through the show, and we all just kind of ragged on it a bit. So it's just it's just not a good episode. And I don't think it's necessarily has to do anything with the child actors, because they're fine. They're not doing a whole lot here. But it's just the whole premise of like, we're gonna tell a ghost story. It just doesn't work terribly well. Like if you're gonna use kids in a story, you want to like do something that kind of like Rascals or something. Like Rascals works, I think.
Even though it was the one I ragged.
Yeah, you ragged on it. Like, I know that you ragged on it, but like,
but the kids did something. They there was a situation. They're
not just sitting there and doing whatever.
Yeah, precisely.
So like, but child episodes with child actors are notoriously difficult, especially in the late 90s. People hadn't figured it out, or like there had been like a dip in figuring out how to work with child actors. And this episode does suffer from that a bit.
Yeah.
So it's just,
no doubt about
it's just
it.
it's not great. So
yeah. All right. I've got a season 1 episode that I enjoyed, and it's not the premiere, which is obviously low-hanging fruit, but I liked Eye of the Needle.
Oh.
This was Voyager's first touch and first ultimate disappointment in connecting with the Alpha Quadrant.
Yeah.
And it was, this was episode, 9 or 10 or something like that. So it was pretty early on. And again, it was a very short season. It was 15 episodes, and then it was padded by number 4 that they held over to season 2. So there wasn't a lot to pick from. But I liked the twist. The twist is, they find a micro wormhole. They're able to communicate through it with a Romulan on the other end. So a Romulan scientist on a ship. And they find a way to beam him through it. But then when they get him there, they find out that he is from the past, their past.
Yeah.
So they would not be able to then use the reverse transporter to go backwards, though I think they can. They choose not to. But they do give this guy a chip with letters from home in it, and then they send him back. And the guy is Vaughn Armstrong, who is the guy who has been more guest starring aliens and during the Berman era than anybody else. I've met him twice, once on the cruise and once in Star Trek Las Vegas. Super duper nice guy. Really like talking to him. And then I did read, I was reading through like discarded plot ideas from DS9 in later seasons, one of which that chip turns up in like a lot that Quark buys or something, and it got thrown out because they said, well, what if people don't get it because they didn't see the other episode, which totally makes sense.
Is fair.
Yeah. But no, I totally dug this. And, again, if we wouldn't have gotten 7 seasons of them not being able to get home if we didn't start somewhere. And I at least thought this one had an interesting twist. They weren't betrayed by anyone. They weren't, it wasn't an illusion or something. It was just generally like, well, we found a thing and we could use it, but we would go 20 years in the past, which would violate the temporal prime directive, yada, yada, yada. So sticking to the Starfleet guns, totally get it.
Yep.
Plus, they couldn't get the ship through there, so they'd be leaving the ship out there and then they'd be on a Romulan ship, which would not be good.
Nope.
So, nope.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that was my good one. So you're due for a good one.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to pick a weird one, I think.
Do it.
Course Oblivion.
Oh yeah, the Silver Blood, right?
Blood.
Isn't that the second part of the Silver Blood? I really like
the second episode. So I have a little bit of a soft spot for it because I was in a role-playing game and we revisited them, and so hilariously I got to play 2 different versions of my character, which was fun. Especially because like he was a Vulcan, and so then I had to play a non-Vulcan-y Vulcan as well, which was just hilarious.
Right. Vulcan.
But so we have this whole thing where it's like it starts with Tom and B'Elanna's wedding, and if you're paying attention, you can see that there's some discrepancies. Like Tom still has his lieutenant, and he's been demoted at this point. I remember the first time that I watched it, I was like, wait a minute, I got to double check something to see if like these episodes are out of order, because I was watching it after it aired. So I was like,
they were also really good at costuming errors in the first season, as we know, because the Pips were all screwed around.
Yeah.
So
but I was like, I went back, I was like, what's going on here? But we get the wedding, and then like we start just like the ship's just kind of doing its thing, and then we suddenly start getting anomalies of like there's things breaking down, there's weird stuff.
B'Elanna like dies.
Yeah. B'Elanna dies. There's just like there's all sorts of just weird stuff going on, and then eventually we start to figure out that like this is not the Voyager. This is a copy that we had a couple seasons ago where the ship landed on that.
And these people don't know that they're not,
and they don't remember that they're not the crew. Right. Eventually they do figure it out, and then it's too late.
But it's too late.
And
then they die, and then Voyager shows up right after they discorporate into silver goo in space.
Yeah.
So
which hilariously, Voyager doesn't recognize the material. They're just like, and there's biological.
Well, they forgot too.
Yeah, they apparently forgot who they were too. So there's a little bit of like, but
you're right. But that did a classic Voyager trope of it was the last 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have a chance to say, oh, that's the Silver Blood shit from the blah, blah, blah planet.
Yeah.
Nope. Not going to happen.
So we didn't really get all the connections. But it was just really, really cool how we brought back something from a previous episode. There's a lot of interesting character bits because obviously they've been through a whole different series of events than our crew has. So they reference things that never happened for us.
Right. Right.
Obviously, Tom was never too much of a douche, and so didn't get demoted.
Right.
Well, he wasn't a douche. He didn't take that hard stand like he did.
Right.
So there's just lots of interesting little nuances and differences, and then obviously the grappling with existential dread, and
Right.
also
Oh,
like
yes,
and
that.
also like loss of identity. Like I'm not who I think
Yeah.
I am. What am
Yeah.
I? So there's just some really, really interesting dialogue and explorations in this episode. And I
Yeah.
think it's really well done. So
For sure. No, I totally agree. All right, let's get into our last couple of bummers.
yeah.
For me, season 6's Muse. And I said, oh, and I feel like, I watched that one not that long ago, but I said, oh boy, a planet of theater kids. And, obviously allegories to ancient Rome where, there's traveling troops of blah, 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 or this is theater or whatever it is. But of course, it's also predicated around we've lost another shuttle because Harry, and why is everybody so bad at flying a shuttlecraft?
Good question.
Because they crashed a shuttlecraft, and one of these theater kids finds B'Elanna or something, or Harry fell out along the way, so you think he's dead the whole time or whatever. And then Torres becomes the muse to this writer guy, and I feel like this would be a big thrill to theater kids. The girlfriend or supposed girlfriend of the main dude later goes on to be Crewman Cutler in Enterprise. And I'm drawing a blank on the actress's name, but she also passed away very suddenly during season 1, so we didn't end up seeing the character again. Yep. She also has a very memorable role in an episode of Seinfeld where she and George hook up, but they eat while they're having sex. It was that episode. I don't know. I can't remember if you're much of a Seinfeld
I haven't seen
guy.
much of it. I've seen bits and pieces.
No, it was just Seinfeld to me. Total sidebar is even though there's a lot of anachronisms in it, will never not be funny because it was just that good of a show. But I digress. But anyway, this episode was as boring as shit.
Yeah.
And again, a definite example of the fact is that we're at the end of the 6th season of a show, and they had to do 26 episodes, and you're going to probably go 50-50 with good and indifferent when you're getting that late into a show. It's like think about the 7th season of TNG versus the 6th season of TNG, where they were probably 75-25 great stuff in season 6, and then they were 75-25 with bad stuff in season 7.
Pretty much.
So yeah, that was me. How about you?
Okay, for my penultimate bad, I'm going to pick the second lowest hanging fruit, Threshold.
Oh,
this is the notorious Warp 10
infamous.
Episode where they're let's use the Delta Flyer to try to go Warp 10, because if we can go Warp 10 we can go fast and get home faster.
We can be home in 2 seconds.
And then wait, we shouldn't go Warp 10 because it mutates DNA. Oh no, Tom is evolving fast because he's gotten his DNA to break the time barrier somehow, and so now he's evolving at ludicrous speed. And then he goes and he evolves into like weird thing, and then he grabs Janeway and like, you're coming with me, goes to the flyer, somehow still has cognition and everything. Because the reason I say that is because it makes even less sense as the episode goes on. And then they hit Warp 10, so now Janeway's evolving, and Voyager has a hard time finding them because Warp 10 is you're at all places at all times apparently.
Right. So how did they ever find them? Yeah,
so
exactly.
But
unless they wanted to be found, you'd have to think that's why.
Dropped out of Warp 10, just a hop, skip, and a jump from where they are conveniently.
You're right.
Barely an inconvenience. So they get there, and then they find these fish salamander things on the shore, and they're like, well, that appears to be what's left of the DNA of Lieutenant Paris and Captain Janeway. And it's like, oh, geez. And there are babies, apparently, which jump back into the pool.
It was spoofed. First of all, you see it at Star Trek cons all the time. People love spoofing this. But there were those recent shorts where different segments of TNG and Voyager in particular were redone in the style of Star Trek the Animated Series, and that sequence was one of them. And it was great. So you see Chakotay go, ooh, hold his hand over his mouth.
They also revisit these creatures in Lower Decks. Going to the farm. But like eventually they do like get them back on the ship and revert their DNA so everything's back to normal and no adverse effects ever. But
And
it never gets mentioned again. Those 3 or 4 babies we don't know what happened to them. They just disappear. It's like, well, if they're human, don't you have like responsibility for them?
Yeah, right. Don't they have some human DNA? But of course they get it. Well, we can't find
we
them.
don't know where they are. And so it's just,
Yeah, right.
you put them on a plane. I mean, clearly there's vegetation stuff they're going to survive, but we're in a feral Molly situation at best.
Feral Molly
and
situation. Ooh, that could almost be the name of the episode.
So it's just none of the science makes sense. I mean, I get that warp 10 is inachievable. Okay, fine, but it's just it's just dumb.
Stop it.
It's really
dumb. Oh my God. All right. Well, let me round out my 5 good with something that I enjoyed. And this would be, again, this is from the same period of time as the Distant Origin. So this is the end of season 3. It's before and after. Now this is Kessa's rock star moment. This is her free bird, as you will, her 15 minutes of doing something interesting. So we're finding at the end of her life. So it's 9 years total in the show. So we've jumped forward, 6 years from where the show is right now, approximately. And they say it in the episode, but I don't recall. Where at the end of her years, she's going to die, and the doctor thinks that he's discovered a way to prolong her life in this little device. But what it does is that it sends her consciousness backwards in time to her own brain, her own body, as things go backwards. And we find out that at a certain point, she started living in this alternate timeline that does some foreshadowing of the Year of Hell, which is the following season with the Krenim and everything, which I think is super cool, well done. But in this version of it, there's an explosion on the bridge and B'Elanna and the captain are standing next to each other and they both get killed by a panel. So then Chakotay becomes captain and Tom is first officer, and Tom and Kes fall in love and they have a baby, and then that baby ages quickly enough to become Harry Kim's wife, and then they have a baby. And of course, a half human and a Ocampa just ages the way an Ocampa does. Okay, so there's some kind of give and take, but I think it's real. I love all takes on stuff, and I think it's cool. It's cool to see Chakotay as the captain with the 4 pips. Tom is lieutenant commander because he's first officer, and Harry gets his one and only promotion to 2 full pips lieutenant. And you know what? Tom might not be first officer. Tuvok might be first officer because he's a commander, which ends up which does not happen in this, but obviously we know he moves forward. But I liked it. I love alt takes, and there's several here, and obviously there's 2 on my list. So I really dug it. I thought that it was a fun episode. It gave some depth and background to Kes, because she goes all the way back to being a very newborn, and you see her back, on the caretaker's homeworld and the underground city, and then she goes all the way back to being a single cell, and then she moves forward in time, and they're able to bring her back to present day. And then things just proceed normally, and it's kind of like all good things. You know what I mean? So I dug it. I thought it was fun. I liked the take.
Yeah. Neat.
All right. Well, wrap me up with your final goodie.
My final goodie. Okay. This is going to be an off the wall one.
All right.
Bride of Chaotica.
Oh man, I love it. The doctor is the president of Earth.
This is such a ridiculous episode. So Tom Paris is doing his Captain Proton shtick with Harry, and then they come into contact with this pocket of photonic beings,
of course,
which then can only interact on the holodeck. But they, get on there and they think that what's happening on the holodeck is real, and so they end up fighting the bad guy, Dr. Chaotica, from the program. And so eventually there's a whole bunch of crazy crap that they have to do. And then eventually Janeway has to pretend to be Arachnia, the queen of the spiders, and show up and like seduce the bad guy. And it all works out in the end. And it's really, really silly. And the hilarious thing is right at the end of the episode, like they do a Dr. Chaotica may return, mwahaha, just like the old serials. So it was like, it's a hilarious nod to, Flash Gordon and the other things. Like it's great. And it's actually one of the episodes that got me back onto watching Voyager. Cause I hadn't watched a ton of it. And then when I was in college, James Haney got me to go do a Star Trek watch party with a whole bunch of people. And so we sat down. It's like, oh, go watch Voyager. I was like, oh, okay, and we're watching this one. All right, whatever. And then I'm sitting there just laughing my butt off at how stupid this was, but not stupid. It's not stupid in a bad way. Like, it really played into the characters and all of the silliness. And it was like, this is a great episode. So it might not be your cup of tea, but it's really well written, really well directed, a good homage to like classic science fiction, and just a romp of hilarious.
Yeah. So. Indeed, it was a romp. I like it. All right, we'll round this out by talking about our last bummer episodes. Mine, again, this speaks very clearly to what I was talking about with the last one. We're into the season 7 crunch, and there were a lot of bad episodes in season 7. But this was Nightingale.
Okay.
Harry ends up taking command of a medical frigate to complete a mission. And I wrote, hey, Harry, why did you never get promoted? And this is not me knocking on Garrett, who we've had on the show, and he is a wonderful guy. I've met him several times. And he's back on the cruise next year, so I'm looking forward to seeing him. So, Garrett, I'm not knocking you if somehow you hear me talking shit about Harry Kim. I said, why did you never get promoted? Have you seen this episode? Maybe you're not ranking up because you're a shitty captain. # sorry, not sorry. But yeah, he goes to command this ship, and one of the other guest stars plays Book on Firefly. So great actor, and I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, but he was on. I think Ron Glass. I think he might have recently passed away. Yeah. So R.I.P. Ron Glass. But and then he has to also bring Seven along to be his other crewman. And again, I feel like, let's just stick Seven in because that's the only character that anybody's supposed to give a shit about. So I felt that was very transparent. The story wasn't really
weird that she's giving him command advice and she's not a command. It was one of those like, okay,
she's not even Starfleet, right? Exactly. So it's just it's more kind of, I don't want to say emasculating, like it's like she's cutting him off with the balls or whatever, but it's more of just like
it's undercutting the character. You could call it emasculating based on like who's involved, but like it's
exactly correct. So that's why I find it kind of a loss. And then Harry does have this big speech with Janeway. It's like, well, if we were back home, I might be a lieutenant or even a lieutenant commander now. And she's like, okay, buddy. Yeah. It's like really not buying it. And I'm just like, oh, you're right. So it's a big disservice.
Yeah, it kind of just torpedoes Kim in a way that's not really helpful, because it's like, here, we're going to give you command and then we're just going to treat you like shit because you're learning and you're making bad decisions.
Right.
And it's like, no, this isn't how you teach somebody.
Exactly.
So it was,
But and then Heaven, like you said, the Heaven 7 there was a misnomer as well. So all right, take us home, Country Road, with your last Bummersville, USA.
Yeah. So my last one is season 4, episode 12, Mortal Coil.
Oh,
so this one, this one is Neelix gets killed on an away mission, and then they have to revive him with Seven's nanoprobes, and he starts to freak out because I was dead and I didn't see the pearly gates, and so now
I didn't see my sister. Go to the forestry or whatever.
Really, really, I'm questioning everything about my faith and belief system and everything, and I understand why this episode exists, but
you don't like it.
I don't like it, and it's one of those things that, and I know this came up when we talked about the Enterprise episode with the religious fundamentalists, and when I brought up back in TNG who watches the Watchers. There is kind of a sort of disdain even for characters that have a religious belief, not in Deep Space Nine as much because of Bajorans.
Right. No, it's a core part of the show. Everybody loves the Bajorans, and they do it right.
They do it. They do it pretty well. And they also respect the Klingon beliefs and all of that. But maybe this is just the writers going, we don't like Neelix. I don't know. But we just get this whole thing of him questioning his belief system, and he's going through this huge existential crisis where it's like, well, what if everything's wrong and nothing has meaning anymore? And so then you have the very materialistic explanations of like, well, meaning is what you want it to be and all of this. And it doesn't really take the faith side all that seriously in a way. And he just has like these kind of like hallucinations of stuff. And
hallucinations of
he
stuff.
hallucinates his sister and all of that. And basically like it all ends with like, well, there's people who need me, so I need to accept that life has meaning because people want me here. It doesn't really resolve anything about his beliefs at all, because they're kind of like it kind of goes to the whole thing of what like Who Watches the Watchers and stuff kind of has in the back corner of its closet of just like anyone who believes in this stuff is stupid. Is kind of like the underlying belief. And I don't really, and I think that one that isn't small soapbox, that science doesn't talk about philosophy because they're two totally different things.
Put it in a different box.
Physicists notwithstanding. And it's just to make judgment on this sort of thing is a little silly. And also to say like, I'm going to be the philosopher for a second. The fact that you didn't see the pearly gates when you didn't in fact die doesn't disprove it because you didn't die. That's kind of the point. So, because fun fact, if you look at how a lot of these things are explained, like that's an extra temporal thing. So if you're not dead, then you haven't exited time, or even if you did, then you're inserted back at the right time that you're supposed to be. So anyway, that's philosophy for a second. But it's just, it doesn't approach the topic as sensitively as it could, because this is something that like, this is something that when you broach that and people do have that existential crisis, it's really terrifying for them and really painful in a lot of ways. And to just be like, oh, well, the solution is just accept that people like you. No.
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. And it's SNL, but if you've ever heard of the SNL Stuart Smalley bit from back in the 90s,
and that's kind of the thing where it's just like, it doesn't reflect that deeper human experience part as well as it could. So
fair, totes fair. All right, well, that is a wrap on Star Trek Voyager. Of course, we'll be visiting Voyager again, not only through random episodes, but when we finish this project, we have another one that will get us back into talking about character-driven episodes for some of our top characters. And then there will come a time that we'll get back into talking multi-part episodes, which will bring us back to Voyager. But for that is our program for this go-around. Thanks for tuning in. Peter, where do people find you out there if they want to nitpick your choices on social media?
You can find me around the interwebs at Patrick Aquinas on most social media. I'm not super active, but you can find me. You can also find me on our Discord. You can find me on ELH's Twitch, YouTube, and Discord, where we do Star Trek Adventures, but other role-playing games too. And you can find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior. We did have an episode Sank to Grief release at the beginning of last month, so if you want to check that out, that would be great. I'm not in it, so, like I said, I'm behind the scenes.
And there's a hot link to that in our show notes too, so you can pop over and check that out. Excellent. You can find me and Secret Friends Unite on most socials, not X and generally not TikTok, but Secret Friends Unite is Secret Friends Unite. And I am at the C3, TheCeeThree. Got to jump back in and do a little kitchen chat here. I want to talk about the fact that I, and hopefully Peter, will be at Motor City Comic Con in Metro Detroit this upcoming weekend. So you're listening to this on a Monday. We will be there on Saturday. So please come find us. We're going to be milling about the floor, looking to meet folks that we can engage with for our Spotlight interview segment, and just generally enjoying ourselves being in our element. So again, Motor City Comic Con is this upcoming weekend at the Suburban Showplace. I feel like they changed the name of it. I don't have the facts in front of me. But if you look up Motor City Comic Con on the internet, you'll get all the details that you need. It's in Novi. Thank you very much. And if you're in Michigan, you probably have heard of it. So we look forward to seeing you there. But with that, and then I got to jump back into doing, as I said, my dining room chats where I'm talking about things that we don't cover on our other shows because we are, of course, a network of shows.
Mm-hmm.
We have this show. We talk about Star Wars on Holocron Chronicles. We cover topics on our Secret Friends Unite Oops All Thunderdome topic show. And then, of course, we do great celebrity and creator interviews over on our Spotlight. We've had some great ones. All of that can be found at our website and also, of course, at our Patreon at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. We would love to have you on board over there. And certainly debate our choices by sending us a note to secretfriendsunite@gmail.com, and we will read your notes on the show if they're not too profane or we don't have to edit them too deeply. But with that, friends, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to tell you as always that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.